and particularly a book in the Kabbalah called the Zohar. And Zohar means radiance, illuminated, and that's where Illuminati came from. And they then went about from 1776, when it started, infiltrating all these different communities and religions, and they took them over. And it was the Rothschild, Sabbatean Frankist cult that created Israel.
In 1883, Baron Edmund de Rothschild agreed to bail out the settlement of Shomron with some much-needed investments on the condition that the village be renamed after his late father, Zichron Yaakov. The same year, he helped establish another village in the south, named Mazkeret Batya after his mother. Taken together, this wave of Jewish immigration came to be known somewhat controversially as the First Aliyah, and those who participated in it were known as Chovevei Tzion, or Lovers of Zion, from which auto-emancipation came to be known by a new term, Zionism. Following his 3 visits to Palestine in the 1820s and 30s, Sir Moses Montefiore began to set up financial and educational initiatives to bring Western-style agricultural practices to the region. Though devoutly religious himself, Montefiore was the first Jewish figure of the modern era to conceive of Aliyah beyond the scope of religion, envisioning Palestine as much as a safe haven for Jews fleeing persecution elsewhere as a place for religious fulfillment. Montefiore also initiated a program to expand the city of Jerusalem beyond its medieval walls, not only drawing Jews out of the crowded old city, but also from outlying cities like Hebron and Safed, as well as from abroad. And by the time the Zionist movement had begun in earnest, Jerusalem was already a predominantly Jewish city. This proto-Zionism struggled to gain traction among the masses, in no small part because their efforts were concentrated in Western Europe, where Jews already had full political rights and the Industrial Revolution had brought considerable prosperity. Palestine, meanwhile, was desperately poor, depopulated, and devastated by centuries of deforestation by the Romans and neglect by subsequent powers. The region had no sewage systems, no electricity, no railroads, no industry. The militant agrarianism championed by the proto-Zionists appealed little to their urban peers, and it's telling that of the 5 men I mentioned, only Al-Khalai made Aliyah himself. Even the agricultural settlements that already existed were struggling to survive, as participating families quickly fled to the relative prosperity of the cities. In 1871, Odessa was one of the most diverse cities in the world. While ethnic Russians constituted the largest share of the population, it was also home to the second largest Jewish population of any city in the world, as well as sizable communities of Armenians, Tatars, Italians, Turks, and Greeks. Odessa's semi-Mediterranean location, diversity, and importance as a trading hub made it the intellectual center of Jewish pluralism and politics in Eastern Europe. But all of those factors also made the Jews of Odessa easy targets for violence whenever there was tension between one or more groups. In 1871, when the city's Greek church was vandalized during the Orthodox Easter, Greek and later Russian communities engaged in 3 days of rioting against the Jews, whom they simply presumed to be guilty for religious reasons. Much of the city was destroyed, while the Russian military and law enforcement stood idly by. In Odessa, a 52-year-old doctor named Leon Pinsker became the face of this disillusionment. Pinsker was a second-generation Maskil secularist who had been raised in the movement to revive the Hebrew language, and had spent most of his life as an advocate for Jewish emancipation in Russia. With the assassination of Emperor Alexander II, the outbreak of pogroms across Ukraine, and the implementation of numerous anti-Jewish laws, Pinsker came to his conclusion that Jews were everywhere foreigners except for their indigenous homeland, and would never be accepted as equals among nations unless they achieved equality as a nation. On New Year's Day, 1882, he published his pamphlet Auto-Emancipation. Just 10 days after its release, the Romanian rabbi and linguist Moses Gaster joined with several other Jewish leaders at the Focșani Congress. Romania was yet another nation where Jewish emancipation seemed to be a lost cause, and the Congress thus endeavored to establish an agricultural village for Romanian refugees in Palestine known as Shomron, or Samaria. Shortly after that, University students in Ukraine formed the Palestine Pioneers, or BILU, who by the end of the year had established the new towns of Rishon LeZion and Rosh Pinah, soon followed by Yesud HaMa'ala. Far to the south in Yemen, a ruling dynasty of Zaidi imams had enforced severe anti-Jewish laws since the 17th century, and life within the Jewish community was extremely chaotic, with frequent pogroms, forced relocations, and multiple messianic claimants in just the 19th century alone. During that period, the Yemenites were visited by the rabbi and anthropologist Yaakov Safir, who helped suppress the messianic cults of personality and encouraged the Jews to find peace and security in his home of Palestine. In the decades following the Ottoman conquest of Yemen in 1872, some 2,500 souls took up Safir's offer, making up 10% of Jewish immigrants. The situation was similar in the Emirate of Bukhara, where the Russian invasion of 1868 ended years of war and banditry, inspiring rabbis Shlomo Musayev and Shimon Chacham to establish the Bukharan quarter in Jerusalem, though their motivations were more traditionally religious than humanitarian.
My sons, when I go, I leave you in your mama's care. She is wise, far wiser than I, and good. Do always as she says, and you will grow rich. Come closer. Much money is lost through sending gold by coach from one country to another. In times of war, it is seized by the enemy. In times of peace, by thieves. You are 5 brothers. I want you each to start a banking business in a different country. One to go and open a house in Paris, one in Vienna, one in London. Choose the most important centers, so that when money is to be sent from here to London, let us say, you won't have to risk life and gold. And here in Frankfurt, we'll just send a letter to Nathan in London saying, pay so-and-so. And that will be offset by loans from London to Frankfurt. Understand?
Yes.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild.
His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. Then he starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home, and then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community.
And is behind, indeed is the Saudi royal family today is the inner circle of so many of these organizations. And I show in the book in a chapter called
The founders of Israel and the Saudi royal family are linked,
Absolutely.
which would be shocking to hear for most people.
But it wouldn't if you do the research, because in the background, the Israeli government and the Saudi royal family have been close. And what's happened since the emergence of this utter psychopath called the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was involved in this horrific murder of Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey, they have become even close in the public arena in many ways, because they are all basically, if you like, Donma in their different forms. And in the book, in a chapter called Atlantic Crossing, I show how this Sabbatean Frankist cult moved in on America and took over American politics, not least through phenomenal, staggering levels of funding, infiltrated the CIA, infiltrated the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, and from that were able to direct inner networks within these organizations, think compartmentalization, which together were behind 9/11.
It's all smoke and mirror with Donald. Donald is a businessman at the end of the day. He will see what is the best interest of his country. And in the best interest of his country is to create more competition. Whatever he's saying, which is anti-immigration, anti-Muslims, this is all just to appease the right of the voting population. Once he becomes president, if he becomes a president, I think he would be clever not to go the path that he has been beating the drums about. It is detriment to his own interest and detriment to the interest in general of United States people.
So you wouldn't mind doing business with him? Is that what you're saying?
I'm a businessman, and I will even do business with devil, as long it is win-win for both. I'm a businessman, and I will even do business with devil, as long it is win-win for both.
Hey guys, if you want to watch more clips, click here.
And if you want to watch the full podcast, click right here.